Oh man, I got a guy. I got a guy for this episode that's gonna really surprise you. I'm 100% sure. Um, when when people think about rural Minnesota, and let's say picture being a farmer and having a few horses and maybe some farm equipment and cars in different states of disrepair, and just trying to make a living. And what is the thought that typically would conjure up, right? You would think rural, you think red, you think conservative, you think, guy plotting the land and maybe crafty, but maybe not worldly enough or not scientifically minded enough or not knowing enough about all the stereotypes that are associated with that exist. Bam, right there. And in comes this guy off your wagon. He's a delightful counter perspective to that stereotype. And that's why his show and his TikTok are exploding and have been for past 3 years. This episode, you get to see what it's like to be a rising star uh, uh, as a YouTuber, as a TikToker, and you get to see the challenges that exist. He openly tells us how difficult it can be to be in these sort of two different states of work. You've you got this farm, you got to keep going, got to keep doing work there, but you also have this blowing up channel. Um, but it doesn't quite bring in the the revenue. It doesn't quite pay all the bills, but you can't stop doing it because you realize you're actually very, very, very good at it. This is a great episode. Please check out his channel. Check out his TikTok, Off Joe Wagon, Off Joe Wagon. It's in the links. I'm putting them in the links. And just join us for this ride. It's pretty awesome. Thank you for your support on Through the Noise. Oh my God, Jordan. You're I think I squealed when we just got on before we hit record.
Yeah.
Because it's so fun to be able to talk to you who I've been just plowing through some of these videos you've been making.
Mhm.
And I try to keep a pretty nonpartisan point of view with things in my life, and especially because I live in Washington, DC, and it's what they train you to do. And so some of the stuff you cover will probably make some of more of my conservative friends "What?" But they're gonna have to give you credit for, the style, deliverability, and just, raw. I don't know what to describe your channel really.
Honestly, doing what I'm doing and, especially, when I first started doing it, for those who don't watch my stuff or know, what I do, it's a lot of content. Not all of it's political, but a lot of it is political, and I'm rural, and I live in a more conservative part of the state, in Minnesota here. But a lot of my friends and family I know aren't ideologically politically aligned with me. And when I started doing this and it started getting big, when I first did it a couple times, nobody I know is ever going to see this, you know what I mean? And then obviously, when you start getting tens of thousands and then hundreds of thousands of followers and videos with millions and millions of views, everybody ends up seeing it, and it's that first kind of just horrifying, shit, am I going to lose friends over this? Is this going to, is what's going to happen? But honestly, I've been surprised at how little of an impact it's had on any of my friendships or anything like that. Even people who I know are ideologically opposed and I know see my stuff, they even follow me, they either just don't bring it up or, they usually just don't bring it up. But then I've had people on TikTok, and YouTube and stuff comment and message me and tell me hey, I don't agree with pretty much anything you say, but I can't argue with it, and I appreciate the way that you deliver it and things like that. And it's not something I ever expected. You get so used to this polarizing world that we live in. And so that's been really cool. It's like I appreciate and I respect the hell out of that. I don't expect anybody to take anything I say at face value, and I don't expect anybody to agree with me or disagree with me. But I really do respect if you disagree with me and you still are willing to listen to outside of your echo chamber and somebody else's point of view, in a respectful manner. I appreciate the hell out of that. So I hope I don't upset any of your your followers.
No, 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 the Lexa, I'm not worried about them. I think that, when I've watched your videos, like, one of the impressions I got was, you're responding in this, like, it's really hard to describe in some ways, but in other ways very obvious, like, this super charismatic way from rural Minnesota. And it's not just random, like, opinionated hot take, although it comes off as it could be that. But it's, like, opinion that's, like, really well lathered with, like, the facts around what you're seeing, right? And so you're almost, like, just kinda calling it straight how you see it. I think people tend to respect that above just random, like, throwing opinion. Like, there's almost 2 types of content out there. It's just random opinion I just, like, half baked in my head, and then that's mostly the stuff I do. And then there's, like, your stuff, like,
Yeah.
and so I'd love to just know a little bit more about the research process, because one of the things I find that's really hard is, like, I've gone through lots of dark, interesting, I just call them rabbit holes, but just things about whatever politics, whatever American society, whatever the world we live in, and there are some really dark, deep, like, you can spend weeks just, like, accumulating knowledge and being constantly surprised, like, holy shit, people really fucking do this to each other. This
Mhm.
is like insanity, right? And once you get to the bottom of that, I feel like that's like a picture, like a free diver. You're holding your breath and you're diving down into the depths,
Mhm.
and you finally find the rock bottom, and it's ugly, but it's the fact. And it's just, then you take your gold nugget out of that experience and you resurface. To me, it's like I've gone on to the next rabbit hole. Like, I don't know that I'm very good at, like, okay, Lana, let me synthesize all this into a piece of content that really explains, like, the complexity that's always going to be wider and deeper than your first opinion on something, right? And that's just how it goes. How do you do it? How do you do that so well with your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is just the way my brain works. I talk about it often, as I have like intense ADHD. Like it's really hard for me to focus on things. Like when I was in college, I was a dean's list student, but I couldn't retain information from textbooks. Like I cannot sit there and do the required reading and retain it. I will read the same paragraph 6 times and be like, I have not read this paragraph one time, because I start thinking about something that's in there and that leads me down a different rabbit hole, and my eyes are going over it, but it's not staying. Um, and so like I get like requests when I do these, like, do you have any book recommendations? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't, because I can't retain that kind of information from there. And so I end up needing just like straight dry facts, or I need something explained to me. And that's why, like in college, I was just made sure I went to class. I never missed class. It didn't matter how hungover I was. And I think I skipped class once because I couldn't get out of bed. But otherwise, I'd make it to class because if it was taught to me, and I could doodle to keep the ADHD, kind of corralled, and somebody was explaining it to me, then I could retain enough of it to at least go through and pick out the relevant bits of information from the textbook that wasn't covered in class. And that's kind of how I do my research. Is I pretty much go for the driest sources you can find. I don't want fluff. I don't want people's opinions. I don't want, other people's perspectives. That's not what I'm looking for. I want numbers and the most straightforward explanation of how something happened in history. And then I can put my own opinion. I can form it from that. I prefer to do it that way. And so that's what I'm looking for, is just as minimal amount of reading through fluff that I have to do. And then I set it aside. I have usually like 5, 10 tabs open before I go film these videos, and I just try to earmark, this is where this little bit of information, or I want to make sure I get the date or the statistic right, or the name right or something like that, and I refer back to it, and that's kind of how the research process goes.
Are you, annotating notes as you're going through this? Or are you scripting something out? I mean, if people haven't watched your thing, one of the things that I should back up. One of the things that drew my attention to you is there's a certain stylistic way you record this stuff,
Hmm.
which is super fun to watch. And it's basically I'll characterize it how I've seen it. It's you walking. It just looks like you're at a farm
Hmm.
and you're going about your daily farm
Yep.
routine, taking care of the animals and the horses or whatever. And oh, along the way, somebody left a dumb comment, just like one of the half baked opinions.
Yep.
And then, all right, let me just break down what why why you're missing a whole sea of information about this. And then it's like comment, and then like the camera switching technique, or then it's like, and then you're referencing that comment, and then you're going here and here. It's like like you're making an emphasis, and the shot is just this
Yep.
as you're walking, as you're doing it. And it comes out beautifully because it's like I can't stop watching you. It's just you talking. It's just you talking and thing. So how does it go from like I have my plethora of tabs, maybe some highlights, maybe some notes, to now what do I do with this script? Like, what are you doing there?
So, I mean, you are more or less right. It's me just walking around out in the pasture usually, or whatever I'm going out to do. And obviously, it takes time and effort to film these videos. So, like, I can't be too involved in any of my chores or tasks while I'm doing it. But I part of the ADHD problem is I have to pace to like for my mind to process this stuff and talk efficiently. Like, it's really hard. It's even this stuff gets a little difficult for me sitting still and talking. But at least when it's face to face, it's a little easier. Like even on the phone, I'm wearing a route in the tile and around the house, just walking around. So that's part of why I just started doing it that way is because I it's the only way I could communicate it. And then that stitch splicing video style that you were mentioning, that's because a lot of that has to do with I need that time in between like point to point to go back and reference notes or tabs or stuff. So I'm using that space for that. And then a lot of times I'm like, because I'm more or less making it up as I go. Um, and so I'll say something and I don't like the way it came out, or I will stumble over my words, just gaff on something. And if I initially tried the like one of the very first videos I ever did, I was like tried to go run through and do it in a straight shot, and after like the fourth or fifth time, it's like there is absolutely no way this is humanly possible. Like I don't know how the people who do it, but I'm like it's not humanly possible. And every time I fuck, can I swear on here?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Every time I fuck up, I had to start all over again, and so I didn't even make it through the first video that way. And if you go back to my older stuff, like the splicing together and editing is much rougher than it is now. Obviously, after doing it for a year and a half, but that's how that came about, and it worked out well because I think a lot of what loses people, especially in short form content, is
Mhm.
the uhs and the ums and the pauses. What you have to do if you're doing something in a solid take, you can't talk as fast as I talk in these videos in real life. Like, this is how we talk in real
No.
life. And like you get those pauses and those ums and those ahs and you're, oh, I'm sorry, correcting yourself in real time. And people check out for that, especially in short form content. And so it was one of those happy accidents that it's really the only way I can effectively record anything. And it also happens to be, I think, much more entertaining and engaging. And then I think the walking and the moving background and, catching the glimpses of the horses and vehicles and random stuff in the background is also keeping that stuff kind of engaged.
So, yeah, so that's weird. It's funny, when I first came across that, like, hyper jump cut style, I know that was a function of just trying to, like, squeeze out the best bits, right?
Hmm.
And at first, I think probably for any, like, boomer gen you talk a lot about generations
I
here.
do.
Gen X, I'm a Gen Xer, so, but it can be initially jarring because 'cause we're so conditioned to more like the smooth, shots or just a bunch of B-roll over the jump
Yep.
cuts. So you don't see the max
Uh-huh.
headroom kinda you remember that? I know you
Yep.
probably
No,
don't.
I do.
You know what I'm talking about? Like, you don't get that kind of thing, but once you get past that, you realize that is way better
Yep.
because like you said, for short form, it's just more entertaining. And it's not the thing is, it's not just the way you do the jump cut. Like we could do jump cuts here, make ourselves sound like we're on NPR, where we take out all the pregnant pauses and all the thinking parts, and then we'll sound really smart, right? But when we're seeing it, it's just gonna be like our head bobbing, suddenly jostling around, and you can get away with that, it's fine.
Hmm.
But the way you take it is you're actually making it part of the style of what you're watching, so now you're capturing the eye too, right? It just kinda keeps it interesting, and that you're outdoors, and the fact that I guess you wear the same thing every time.
It does make it easier wearing the same thing all the time because, like, you'll go back into edit, like, oh, I filmed this days ago or whatever, but I'm editing it now. And then you're like,
Yes,
I
you
missed this entire section of what I meant to say. Like, I just never said it. You think you say it because I go over this stuff in my head over and over, like, usually what two takes ahead are going to be. And sometimes I'll just thought that I did it because I'd gone over it so many times and I never actually did it. And so, the the funny thing is, I mean, there's a lot of times I'll just put on the shirt, like, because I'll edit things in the morning before I get out of bed a lot of times, and I'll be editing it. I'm like, fuck, I messed this up, and I'll just put on the shirt I was wearing because I always wear the same thing, and I will go stand out on my front porch. I'll still be in boxers and barefoot and whatever,
let
just
me ask
refilm that
clarification.
one clip, and I've never had anybody mention that they notice it. So, but that is the nice thing about having a brand, almost.
I guess. You know you're getting, off your wagon episode when you see yourself come up on that way, right? I mean, honestly, I did a lot I still do work for nonprofits here in Washington, DC, all kinds, all different types. But one of the reasons I've, like, started stopping the networking and the finding new projects there or whatever was because they are still stuck in this mode of like, we take ourselves so seriously and we have to they over deliver on the details of content. It's very hard to distill, especially if you think of like a nonprofit like a trade association, it's just basically a very watered down little political group and they have to say things just right, and the executive director has to manage that middle ground because if they really stick their neck out, they're not that's not what they're paid to do with the membership. Like half the membership will disappear if like they're not very careful. But what happens is you have this watered down that Washington speak that people complain about that, you're not getting to any concrete bedrock.
No,
It's just the nature of that work that just causes that. And so, I don't know, I've worked in there for long enough. I just got bored. I couldn't take it anymore.
oh, that would drive me absolutely nuts. Yeah.
I want I wanna have fun, and the bottom line is it's like content creators like you, that are just, like, wiping the slate clean over any of that
Yep.
because they can't really stick to a point. They can't come out I'll be honest of what their position is, especially trade groups are trying to come up with a public campaign. They're like, really, they just want to protect what their personal interest. They're not really thinking about everybody else's, whatever. It's fine. But they're not driving it there. And so no one watches it
No.
except them.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that is definitely, and honestly, nonprofits move slow. I used to work for the Boy Scouts. That was my first job.
Oh, yeah.
First job.
Oh, really?
Yeah, first job out of college. I was a district executive for the Northern Star Council here, and
Oh, wow. Was it paid or did they make you, is it like a volunteer?
no, it was a paid salaried position. Barely paid by, I think I like came out of college making like 32 grand a year. It was a joke, but for a salaried like executive position. So yeah, it was
Oh, right. They'll give you all the responsibility and the titles, but
yeah.
we're not going to give you the
Hmm.
love.
Um, so
2 weeks vacation.
so I really get they're so slow moving and they're so behind the times. Like going back to generational stuff, part of my job was fundraising and part of my job was volunteer recruitment and part of my job was youth recruitment and a million other things in between that. And 90% of it I had no physical control over, but you're graded accordingly. um but the things you do have some control over, like volunteer recruitment and fundraising, they they're still stuck in like the 1950s and 60s in the way that they do this, and they're still like, this is the way we have structures. People want titles, people want a position, and I'm like, boomers want that, but my generation doesn't. And like, these are the people who have kids today, and they kind of had that refusal because they didn't want to alienate anybody, they didn't want to make too big changes, rock the boat too
Mhm.
much, because you have all these old timers that this is their social group, so they still volunteer even though their kids are 50 years old now, because that's what they've always done. And so you change it too much, well, we're going to lose all of them. And it's like, yeah, but you're not getting anybody new, because no millennial and very few Gen Xers want to come in and have a titled position that they're not getting paid for. Then it just feels like another job. And then it feels like more responsibility that they're not sure that they want to commit to. It's like, we need to restructure this whole thing. And they just refused to do it. It made my job impossible. So I know the struggle. I know the feel. It's just,
Mhm. Now, some groups over time, I mean, it's starting to change, right? Millennials aren't kids anymore, right? A lot of them are like fully in charge of budgets and running some things here and there, right? So it's like it's not forever, but hopefully the energy to change doesn't also change as other things come into priorities. But I
mhm.
feel like that's like part of the human
It
cycle
is.
in some ways, you know?
It
You
is.
have a lot more energy when you're younger and you just don't see why the world is the way it is, and you're like, "It should be this way." But then there's a bunch of other people who, just to get it to that point, struggled mightily just to be there, so stop messing it up at this right, and
It is, it is, and I mean, and part of it, and I talk about this a lot too, is just an aging demographic and leadership that doesn't want to step aside and wants to keep the status quo the way that they did things, the way that they still see the world, even though that world doesn't exist anymore. And I think that that's why it's harder to get change now than it has been in the past. Um, but this is completely off topic for what we're here for now. So,
no, well, sort of, because I'm gonna get into, like, I wanna ask you, like, your theory of, like, the theory of TikTok, as I meant, like, or YouTube. Like, to me, I think that the action is in this stuff. If you're, like, somebody like you that can pull apart and sort of synthesize these, like, especially in the short form videos, where you just so succinctly just, like, it's beautifully written. It's like I look at that as like, "Wow, it's some fucking amazing performance, uh, experience that I'm watching." And it's so fun that it's like I'm a city boy. You're the guy that I wish I had a best friend that had a farm. Like,
yeah.
you sound so it just seems so fun the way you deliver it, right? And that's half the discussion, I think, with, like, people that are professional videographers, and, like, a friend of mine had on the show that works for PBS. It's like, if you can't make it entertaining and informative, you're gonna lose the audience. Don't even Why bother? Just write your press release,
Hmm.
submit the PDF report. No one's gonna look at it. It doesn't make any difference. But if you can get past that and you can get into the, new way of delivering content, you can do some damage. I mean, you can really influence, you can really run, and it happens, sounds like, because I was listening to some other interviews of yours, happens just like happenstance. It's not like you set out to do this. You just What happened?
Yeah, it did, it did. So my fiance set me up on TikTok because I was not going to do TikTok. I wasn't going to do Facebook back in the day. I was the last person on MySpace. So I wasn't going to do that. And when she kept saving all these videos that she wanted to show me, and she's like, all right, I'm sick of, like, I have all these videos piled up, and now you have my phone for the next 45 minutes. I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs while you watch videos I already watched. I'm setting this up on your phone so you can see this stuff. And she kept kind of like goading me to maybe make content, because I used to get in like Facebook arguments all the time. It's just, you end up writing paragraphs and wasting hours of your life for nothing. It doesn't help anybody. It's not healthy. Like, nothing good has ever come out of a Facebook argument.
The back and forth, and, like, how people just will cherry pick your one sentence, your book paragraph, and they'll say, "Oh, well, you messed up here," and then I make that, like.
And you're engaging with one person, because nobody's going to sit there and read Moby Dick level of comments going down So you're just arguing with one person, and eventually you just get like tired and stressed, and you're like, why did I do this? You know, you never leave that feeling good. So this gave me kind of the opportunity, and it didn't turn out that way because I still wasn't going to do it. I'm like, I don't want to go talk, like, I don't know how to make videos. I don't want to talk about politics or anything on the internet. And I was sitting at the bar one day, and I noticed that the little We ID sign was going to be, it was like a couple months away, and it's like kids who weren't alive for 9/11 are going to be able to sit here at the bar and drink with me, and that was just like went totally gray at that point. I turned into
Oh,
Mr.
really?
Miyagi
You
instantly.
impacted you to the core? I've gotten used it happens by the way, it'll continue
Oh,
happening.
I
Like,
know, I know.
the feeling gets worse.
Uh-huh. And and so I was like, I needed to get it off my chest. So I made a video
Okay.
about that. And it went sort of viral. It was like 500,000 views or something like that. But everybody was stitching it. It got stitched and stitched and stitched for like 8 months. It was being stitched multiple times a day. I think I had more stitches than views by the end of it.
Hold on. Define stitches, 'cause I don't we're on YouTube and I
Oh,
don't
oh, sorry. Yeah, so it's just where somebody takes a short portion of your video and then tags their own video onto the end of it. So they make a video basically responding to your initial video. And my part of my video was, what makes you just feel fucking ancient, right? And everybody would stitch that second and then just go into why they feel old or what makes them feel old. And so, it was like it was really engaging for people in a way that I never intended it to be. I didn't expect 100 people to see it, let alone hundreds of thousands. And so I was like, okay, this is cool. And I still hadn't like been like, all right, this is gonna be a consistent thing. Like, I don't know how to replicate this. This was one of those fluke things. It just did what it did. And I still wasn't going to talk about politics. And then somebody stitched it, talking about kids today, like, oh, nobody has a work ethic anymore, and you've seen my content about that, and so like it lasted one thing where I wasn't doing politics, and then I went and I stitched her video and did what I do, and that one blew up, and I'm like, okay, there's kind of something, and that just fed into the comment response videos and things like that, and it just kind of happened. It was like, in a matter of a week or two, I had over 10,000 followers. I'm like, okay, this is a real thing now. Like, now people are watching. And it was like, and now it's something I'm doing apparently. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it.
And then the wearing the same clothes, which is the practical solution to the fact that you might need to take a moment to or you forgot something to
Oh, into
add
that
to
too.
s
I just happened to be wearing this when the first video was filmed, and it was winter. So I was just wearing the same thing over and over again because I had a sweatshirt that's this color and a jacket, and it was just kind of my daily go to do chores. I threw that on. You wear sweaters multiple times and things like that. And then somebody mentioned it, and I had these glasses. It was just something I'd gotten for free at a beer dabbler, and I just really liked the glasses, so I was wearing those. And somebody like mentioned that they really liked the aesthetic, and I was like, oh, I guess, yeah. And so like, because I'd already made a couple 3 videos, I was already wearing that, and so it seemed like a trend, even though it hadn't really been a trend yet at that moment. And I was like, well, I guess I might as well stick with it, and just kind of turned it into a brand. And now it's gotten to the point where I barely wear this in public anymore because it feels a little pick me, I guess, but yeah, and so again, it was one of those happy accidents that I was wearing the same thing all the time, and now that makes it really easy to go cover up mess ups in videos without it looking like anything's not spliced together, or done at a different time. And yeah, so I think the brand actually helps a lot too with just recognition. Like, people see me pop up, and they know that this is a person they follow, somebody that they want to see, and they stick around for it. Where a lot of times, if you're always wearing something different, you slide by sometimes without even realizing that it's a content creator you want to watch. And then I think it just kind of completes a feel. It's that rural feel that kind of is part of the appeal of my content, I think, and I think.
I love it. It's a, you're also playing into, like, what are the stereotypes out there that you counter just by being who you are, obviously, right? I mean, I didn't know much about Minnesota until I married someone from Minnesota, and then I realized, "Oh, there is a better way of living in this world." I'm not just saying that, you know? She slowly wrapped her, fingers around me and with some baked goods and flew me into St. Paul.
Mhm.
It's lovely. There's definitely a different way of life that exists there that I've grown to love too.
I'm surprised she hasn't
Um
roped you into moving here yet.
Well, she talked about it, but the fact is she does hate the cold. I love the cold, and if you guys had mountains, I would be there in a second. If you had just, like, one Colorado peak for me to go snowboarding, I'm done. I'm out. Peace, Washington. Love you guys, but I gotta go. Like,
Have you been to Duluth yet?
is that where one of the resorts are? One of the I've
Well,
been to a ski.
there's a resort, Lutsen, quite a ways north of Duluth yet, but yeah, there is a ski hill and everything up there, but just the it kind of gives you the aesthetic of mountains around Duluth. You know, it's right there on Lake Superior, and so it's cliffs and big hills, and it's much more of a mountainy kind of coastal mountainy feel there. I mean, I wouldn't call them mountains, but they're mountains for us.
Well, you do have perfect, like, snow conditions because it stays consistently cold versus here in Washington, see it like, it gets hot during the winter or something, and then suddenly it gets cold again, and now you have a sheet of ice to go, we call it fast snow. It's not really it, we just try to survive it and deal with it,
Hurts when you
but
fall.
it's perfect, but the place I went to felt like they were like small hills, perfect conditions, just a little too short,
No,
for me.
there's definitely quite a few places you can go do it. It's not going to be anything like being in the real mountains, obviously, but yeah, and it gets cold there. I mean, I wouldn't consider. I went to college in Bristol, Virginia, Bristol, Tennessee, so it's very similar weather to where you're at there in DC.
Virginia area, yeah, humid and dying.
I'd take this winter over Appalachian winter any day. That was miserable because it's like, yeah, it might be 30 or 40 degrees, but it's a wet 30 or 40 degrees. And
Oh,
you
yeah,
never warm
better
up.
be
It's
ready.
like here you come inside and 2 minutes later you're comfortable, you know?
It's different.
There it's like it's in your bones. It's like this is just the temperature you are now forever. Like this is it until it's 90 and humid again, you know?
Yeah, there's, like, a lot more coziness things done in Minnesota, where in the East Coast, it's just, like, brittle bitterness about the cold.
Yeah.
So gets everybody's but just to shift back into this area, though, I like one of the things I think is great is the fact that it's sort of surprising, both the content you create and, like, the character that you're presenting or sort of showing, that that intrigues people to, like, kinda do that, "What?" And to the extent that anybody who's creating material, and I don't do a good job of this at all, but which I'm trying, but, to the extent that you can create something surprising within, like, the first moment, like, just give them that double take of, like, "What? What is this guy? What is going on here?" That's enough to draw them in, right? But then you gotta get emotional, you gotta get somehow create content that, like, really hits the gut in some way, because that's the memorable part, right? That's what drills into our memories, and so if you don't have that, you're gonna struggle, and if you're doing video work, you need to have, keep it you need visuals, to keep it entertaining. Ooh, I love long form podcasts, that's where I really got started in, and, at the time, my co-host that I had, he was always saying, like, "Nothing's more visual than the mind," which is true. But if you can't be found, it's not easy to find a good podcast that you can sink into. Most people that listen to podcasts have, like, their 1 or 2,
Mhm.
maybe they're J you know, Joe Rogan camp, or
Yeah.
maybe they're, like, a Brene Brown camp or something, like, there's you find the one and you stick to it until, like, maybe you find another guest, and, like, the research always has been clear there. It's like marketing a new show is very difficult. Audio only shows, very difficult. It's like you have to be a celebrity. Celebrities sort of taken over that world, and they trade by jumping on.
Mhm.
Slide that all out of the way. On video, there's all kinds of mechanisms to be found. Stitching on TikTok clearly is one way. Obviously, the algorithms that they're using to surface, and, like, just being able to skip the line and pay
Mhm.
to advertise your show or whatever, all of that is there and available, and just the sheer, like, scroll. But now you have to deal with the visuals, and you just have a perfect low, inexpensive, very practical way of doing that.
Mhm.
I'm sure others are doing it. You can't be the only one, but you just sort of like stumbled.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think my stuff, eh, so my theory on it, and I guess you're probably getting to this anyway, with the TikTok, and I found it really hard to replicate the TikTok success on other platforms so far.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was looking at your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It really is frustrating. And granted, I repost just the exact same stuff. It's not even edited separately for YouTube at this point because honestly, editing is time consuming. Like,
Yeah,
and it's just it takes, especially I'm doing it all myself. I'm doing all the research myself. I'm doing all the filming. I'm doing all the editing. If you want to call it writing, I'm making it up as I go, but I'm doing all of that myself. And TikTok's finally starting to pay okay-ish, and I mean okay-ish is about as much as I can say, but it's hard to put that kind of effort into now other platforms that aren't paying yet, that aren't giving me the monetization and the because I still can't fully survive off of this. Like, I still have other things that I have to do to make a living, and I still have a life and everything like that. It's just hard to I have a lot of respect for the people who can cross platform format and edit and do all that. I can't unless it's more monetization or I get more help. And
I don't think you should. I don't think you should. I mean, other than just post it up
yeah,
there just to be found, maybe.
hmm,
But honestly, don't think when you're first starting that that should be a focus. Really,
yeah,
like you should put all your eggs into pushing through the one where you're breaking through, and it's creating an opportunity there. The only reason you would diversify is if something happens to TikTok, if like whatever.
hmm,
That I don't think I told you, but like my theory of why TikTok keeps getting in trouble in Congress is because Facebook and Google and all these guys have big lobbyists that would love nothing more than to see TikTok disappear just on that.
that's a huge part of it. And I think that I do think that there's something. I'm very rarely the one into conspiracy theories or anything like that, but I
No,
do think that there is a component of the fact that it's media that is hard for them to control a narrative on. I don't think that they're like I think it's something that it's getting away from their ability to market themselves, their policy, their stuff, the way that they want. And it makes it really easy to stay, the stuff that they're normally able to slide under the rug and keep quiet is really easy to just be like, hey, this is what's going on. Here's, the context of the bills that they're trying to pass. Here's what they're doing. And that's normally stuff that they didn't have to worry about looking over their shoulder. Like, we can slide this sneaky shit in here and ruin a bunch of people's lives, and they're never going to know or pay attention to it because if it's not a sensational enough story, you know, NBC and CNN and NPR, they're not going to cover it. They only have so much media they can cover, and they need to fill that with the stuff that's going to draw the most eyes. Where this kind of social media, you can do that. How long until TikTok becomes as sold out as Facebook and Meta and everything else, and that's not an issue anymore, is up for debate. But at the moment, I'm sure it's a huge frustration for them because a lot of stuff gets brought to the forefront that they didn't want.
yeah. Well, it goes to show, I mean, every platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, everybody started doing vertical short form I call them scrollable videos, just the sort of like nugget videos that TikTok, and they're all trying to hack that thing in there. And so, yeah. And so then anything else that can slow down the progression of TikTok is going to be something that they have lobbyists that are keenly interested and trying to,
Absolutely, yeah.
pursue. And it's sort of working because it's just the Chinese concept. Like, I don't know. I'm with you on that one. Like, I'm uninclined to believe conspiracy theories until proven otherwise, right? It's like, I
I
can't.
don't think it's a concerted conspiracy. I think it's a guttural reaction
Sure.
to this. Hey, we are representatives who are now being called out for some of the shitty shit we're doing, and we don't like that, and we need to find a way to not make that happen. I don't think it's like some big high level.
Right. That's definitely part of it from from a political point of view or from some of these other like, deflecting concerns. Like, I don't hear much hate on Mark Zuckerberg lately.
Hmm.
If anything, people are rooting for him and Elon to go to wrestle.
Yeah, I mean, that's a win-win situation for
But
everybody.
it's not
Like,
like it's not like Facebook's changed.
right.
It's just the locus, the center of the argument, whatever.
Right. And yeah. And then and but you've got a great point. I mean, we stopped enforcing antitrust stuff a long time ago, and Meta, Facebook is a monopoly at this point. I mean, between Facebook itself and WhatsApp and Instagram and now Threads, and they control the vast majority of the social media world, and we need the competition. Honestly, like that shouldn't be allowed to
Yeah,
have all of those platforms. That's the whole point of a free market that these conservatives pretend to love and do everything to destroy. But the competition should be there, and that's why TikTok is great in that sense, as it's new competition that is real competition at the moment.
yeah, yeah, it's something like there was some leaked, internal document from TikTok that was like the average TikTok user consumes like 2 hours of content or 2.5 hours of content a day. It was a while ago. It was like a lot. It's like a lot.
Oh, I believe it. It gets easy to get sucked in, and they're doing all the same shitty, addictive social media stuff that all the other ones do. But
Yes. It's not like it's changed, just that they just got it fine-tuned just a little bit better, and it's off to the races. Well, I mean, one of the things I don't like, I think, about TikTok is it's hard to actually, like, click on links to go look at other stuff, but anyways.
yeah, no, they do everything they can do to keep, like, people complain that I don't put my sources in my videos. I'm like, I have no easy avenue to do that because they do not allow it. They do not allow you to post links anywhere. If people post links in my comments, which they're never clickable, you have to like copy them and then like delete the person's username when you paste it in. Uh, but if anybody posted in my comments, I have to go through and manually approve those links because they'll
Oh,
hide them.
what?
Like that's how hard TikTok works to keep people on the platform. And
Their argument, of course, would be like, "Well, we're just trying to keep everybody safe. They're not clicking
oh
on
yeah,
the"
no,
yeah.
it's always some bullshit argument. But they give a fuck less about safety. I mean, I love the platform and the community. I hate TikTok. Like I hate the fact that I have no access. Like I have shy of 500,000 followers at this point. I'm monetized on the platform, and they have AI that manages all of their community guidelines, and it does a horrible job. Like horrible job. Things get mass reported, and they're like, oh, this is a community guidelines violation. And then you appeal it, and it'll come back, a 10-minute long video will have an appeal result in 10 seconds. Obviously, no human ever watched that. And they're like, nope, this is gone forever. All this hard work you just put into making this, all the money you were making off of it is gone. Oh, and a strike on your account. And these strikes may or may not end up in your account getting banned. How many you can get, what kind of strikes you can get, we don't know. We're not going to tell you. And you have no recourse for it. It just makes it horrifying as a creator. It's like, I've spent, a year and a half of my life at this point building this community and making all of this work, and it is now a supplementable part of my income that I'm adjusting where I spend my time, so I rely on it more because I spend more time doing this. It's like that could just be gone tomorrow because TikTok decides to, and I have no recourse.
That's your argument for diversifying into some other platform because you never really know, really, and that's but at the beginning, when you're first starting out, it's like you can't spread yourself too thin, otherwise you won't make good content, and so that is a big challenge, and I think there's also, like, a big I'll constantly 'cause we're helping produce this stuff for other clients, and I'm constantly telling, like, "Okay, your expectation of, like, when you can monetize from where you are today, like, that's like the Grand
Yeah.
Canyon. Let's just take it there. Like, you could get lucky, and you can sort of supplement your income like you, Jordan, or more likely, you're not gonna get your video's gonna suck, they're gonna be boring, no one's gonna look at them, and it's gonna take the whole other and so you gotta really I mean, you gotta think about other strategies to monetize, obviously, like selling swag or something, which is pretty cool. I think you can get those glasses
Yeah,
now,
you can buy
right?
the glasses. I actually have a bunch of merchandise. We're working more. I have a friend who's helping me with the podcast that we're working on, and his wife, she makes all my logos and stuff. So
I have an idea.
having her
Crazy idea.
having her take over the website and him kind of help editing the podcast stuff.
Has that helped? Has that brought some income
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, it's again, it's nothing you can live on, but it definitely makes it more worthwhile. It's probably a few $100 a month profit in merchandise, by itself. And then, you can put up your Venmo or buy me a coffee or other tipping service things. You get a few $100 a month off of that. Sometimes you get people who are like super generous. I've had people individually give me $100, just like was like, hey, and like it was mind blowing when that first started happening, but it means a lot, and it's one of those things. It's like, hey, there's people who appreciate this, even if the platform doesn't, and it's part of kind of what drove me on through the not being monetized part of it was I'm making enough of a difference in somebody's life where they're like, I'm going to send this complete stranger on the internet $100. It's
Totally.
like, wow, that validates everything you're doing.
And they're not even asking anything in return. It's like
And in the beginning, I kind of felt like bad about it. I was like, I wish you would have bought merch so I could have given you something because
right.
you feel weird about people just giving you money. But as it goes on and you start to realize, it's like, hey, I do make some sort of difference in people's lives, and that obviously is varies a lot to person. Some people, the difference I make in their life isn't a positive one too. But uh the fact that there's like some people who are in the position to do that, and it's almost like, hey, you're making this difference to me, but you're also making this difference to somebody else, and I'm in the position to say thank you for myself and other people who aren't in that position. And it really pushed me through to get to, because I was getting super burnt out on just the amount of work I was putting in for being in the creator fund before. And I mean, I made like $500 in a year off the creator fund. It was a joke.
What was the creator fund? What was
It
that?
was before creativity program beta. It was our first monetization thing, and there was no there they suck at transparency. The new monetization program isn't great either for transparency, but it's a lot better. But the other one, they're just like, hey, you made X amount of cents or dollars today. And I was like, I was lucky if I was making like $1 a day off of it. And I had videos with millions of views. And it's like, this is almost insulting. I'd almost rather not be getting paid than get a dollar a day for stuff that you're clearly making money off of me for. So,
I mean, yeah, that's part of the rub here. This platform is just a bunch of software that's linking, viewers to, like, creators, but the content that draws the viewership towards them, that, like, they're like, that is the value, right? That's the
we're the
network TV
product.
value.
We are what they are selling,
Yeah, and you're taking on all the risk.
Yeah.
Creating the content, your personal content.
You're buying the cameras and the stands and the microphones, and you're using your time and your energy, and yeah.
I always thought I just thinking, and this is a very Washington, DC thing to say, but I think there needs to be like a regulatory board on it. This thing is the electric grid or the sewer system, and there's got to be hearings on the payouts and like how when can you turn somebody up or turn somebody down because they're pulling on the knobs all the time, right? Like even if just to keep it going, and no one's looking at it except them. And there's just, of course, they're gonna like, oh, we got our next quarterly earnings to put out, so let's make it a little more favorable for us, right? And they're trying to find like where's the sweet spot where we make the most and everyone else gets barely enough to keep them killing themselves.
And that is the huge frustration, and that's again where like I was that close to checking out before they switched to the new monetization program.
Really?
Yeah, because I wouldn't probably quit altogether, but I wouldn't have been doing. I was like, I'm making 1 to 2 videos a day.
Not the level.
Like I was like, I just can't. I'm getting burnt out, and it feels so unappreciated. And then like on top of the fact that you get shit reported and taken down, and it's like I'm not getting paid for it. Now you're just like, now it's just going away. So yeah, and then they changed the program, and of course it starts off with a bang. I started getting paid really well right off the bat. It's like, okay, cool, new energy for it, and I think my content got a lot better, my views got a lot better, a new wind and new followers and all kinds of things, and and now it's tapered back off again, and now it's like feels like you're fighting for every view again, and it's frustrating because it's like how you have no recourse, there's no transparency to understand why or how they're making these decisions, and it's frustrating. And I wish that there was a way that we could organize like a union as creators because we need something. We really do.
I think there's rumblings of that all over the place, right? But how and who, and and then that's another nonprofit to fund with another board. Like that comes with all that. Um, I do have an idea. Like, I think one of the things to do is you got to offline some of the monetization strategies, but it's hard to decide what that is And I just think it'd be awesome if, like, I could pay for, like, a weekend with Jordan and hang out at his farm, just be like a helping hand,
Yeah.
like, "What do you need?" Like, it'd be cool for me to come up, and I would pay a lot, like, I'm sure there are fans of yours that would pay a lot of money for that, like, just to be there, and why not? And just fuck it, that's fun, right?
That is definitely, a part of it, I'm on Cameo now, I have
You need a little bit of a vetting process.
yeah, and that's kind of the balance too, is, like, this has gotten way bigger than I've kept up with, like, "Oh, I should probably start thinking about, like, personal security," just, I mean, not like bodyguards or anything, but, like, "Hey, I maybe need to get, like, a PO box instead of using my personal address for stuff," or, like, just things like that, it's like you never expected these to be things that you had to, like, focus on and worry about, and so you get that, but yeah, I keep trying to diversify the monetization aspects of it. Like I said, I'm on Cameo now. I haven't actually advertised or even let anybody know about it yet, but that's another thing that is sort of the digital version of what you're just talking about.
Yeah, Cameo? What's that? Hold on a sec, I don't even know.
It's a thing where, and I'm using this term very loosely, but you can pay celebrities. So, like I said, I'm using it loosely because I don't really consider myself a celebrity, but there is big name celebrities on there too. You can pay them to give a personalized message to somebody. So, like if you wanted me to wish your friend happy birthday, like that could be a thing. Or if you wanted me to, like, people say all the time in the comments, like, I wish I could invite you over to Thanksgiving dinner to tell my racist uncle what's what. I'm like, well, I could make, if you want to pay for the video, I could make one directly to them if you want, but
Hell yes!
so that's another option, and like I said, I haven't advertised it yet because, again, it's just weird getting your head into the fact that these are things like asking.
That people want from you, right?
But yeah, there is options out there, and I'm trying to diversify it as much as I can. Uh, but it's frustrating because it's like your primary monetization source should absolutely be the content you're making that somebody else is making money off of. Like, it should be just a straight, we make X amount of money off of the followers that you have or the views that you get, or we make X amount of money off of everything and we will pay you in proportion to the followers you have and the viewers you get. Something along those lines. It should be straightforward,
It
transparent.
should be like a baseline that's across the board for everybody, that's not, like, discussed, and it's just like that, if you get to this level, everybody knows you're at least making this, and then, like, let the frothiness bonus be the part where they play their games, but something where it's consistent, especially to the tune of, like, how much production you have to put in to then keep that, right? I mean, it's not like you have the highest production cost here
No.
with what you're doing. It's just your time, which is the most valuable, I would
Yeah,
argue, right? Like,
absolutely, absolutely, and
you gotta run your farm or your other stuff you're doing to make a buck, especially if you can't get it all consistently and, let's say, reliably from this. So, you know
they do. They need to have something that it's like, all right, if as long as you produce X amount of content for the platform that's, meets certain criteria, gets so much interaction and so much engagement, you get X amount of money every month, no matter what, that you can rely on to keep doing that. Because yeah, it is really hard. As a creator to work on these things, and for my own benefit, I've been making inconsistent sources of income the majority of my life now, and so, like, I'm used to that to an extent, and I have lots of different avenues, lots of different hands, cookie jars that my hands are in, so that makes it, I think, easier for somebody like me. But for a lot of other people who are trying to do this for a living, and they don't have those options, like, that's I don't know if I'd be doing it. That's risky.
Right. That's part of the business, though. It's like I realized when I started when I was 27 doing this work, I mean, it was mostly actually website work I was doing, and I realized I didn't know shit about business, and perhaps if I knew what it would take to squeak a living out of this, maybe I would have never done it. I'm probably sure I would have never done it. Like, I'm really sure. Just, like, almost my own ignorance is what let me be dumb enough to keep plowing myself, hitting my head against a wall until it broke, right? The wall or me, right? One of those 2, and plow to the next level. There's something to be said about that process, but on the other hand, it just really seems it's very using. I think the stuff that's happening in Hollywood maybe will trickle down and impact here, right?
I'm hoping. I really am hoping. I mean, it's a similar field.
You're a writer, you're the talent,
Mhm.
you're also the production team.
Mhm.
What the fuck's TikTok giving you? Exactly.
They're giving you the platform, that's it. They're the people who are putting it out there, but that's it, and there's other options to go to. The frustrating thing is, again, trying to find that same success that you have in one spot in another spot, because if it was that easy, they'd have a serious problem. If I could go and have the same type of engagement and monetization on Instagram or on YouTube, like that, I would go do that. But it's not as easy as like some other industries where it's like, okay, I can just go get another job that's going to pay as well or better over here, because I have this resume with these qualifications, and they're looking. It's just you have to try to find the source, the following on each of their own platforms on your own. So it's always building from scratch. You don't come in with your resume and it's like, here, I have this. I deserve this following, these views. You just don't, and that's what makes it a lot harder to kind of leverage your value as a creator to the platform that you're giving your primary content to.
Yeah, and is it tacky to ask your, like, TikTok followers, "Hey, can you guys help me out on YouTube and just, like over there a little bit?" Or is it
I don't
just
think it's tacky. I think, and this goes back to, video strategy and engagement strategy, is you have to be very careful how you do it, because again, people check out immediately. If that's not an entertaining thing to do, and it's not, if it feels beggy, I guess. I think a lot of people, it just turns them off and that sort of thing. And so like I'll mention it
please
occasionally.
like, subscribe, and share? It's like, you do you really have to say it now anymore? No.
And if you do say it, it's like, no, I don't really want to do it. Like, why? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it's that hard line to find, that hard thing to figure out, is like, where is like that right balance of how do you say, hey, it's like, it's even with the merchandise. It's like, I don't peddle my merchandise in every video. I don't peddle my merchandise in hardly any videos. You know what I mean? I have it in my link tree up at the top, and I probably should do more of it. But it's also hard to be like, how do you say that and keep people engaged? Like, you want people to follow through you, and you don't want to feel like you're standing there with your hand out, or like you're trying to sell people something. It's like, I'm here for you to listen to the message of the video, for the entertainment or the information, not to sell you something. And as soon as people feel like they're being sold something, it checks them out. I think that honestly, with like Facebook and Instagram, this has been one of the big problems, is they've twisted so heavily to advertising, where people are just checking out of those platforms, not because the platform setup itself is bad, but because it's like, you just feel like everything you scroll through now, you're trying to get sold something. And that's not what you're here for. You know what I mean? Like, you get it. They have to pay the bills. You're gonna have to endure an advertisement. But now it feels like everything they push is something that's trying to sell you something. And I think that that's a hard part about getting content traction on other platforms, is because they're not going to push the stuff that's not being paid to be pushed.
Yeah, I think, the race to always file those quarterlies and show growth is what's causing perhaps like, I worry about YouTube because I think if you don't pay premium YouTube to get rid of the ads, it is god awful. It's like it's constant interrupting ads after interrupting ads. I don't know how it's even really viewable, right? In some ways, and that can kill the goose that's laying the golden egg for a huge platform.
Yep.
If you're letting the bean counters run the show, right? It's like kinda like if you let your attorneys
Mhm.
tell you about all the risks in business, they'll tell you don't start the business. You know, which is which is right. Like it's like I get that's your job, but obviously you're not.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like, all right, sure, you can count the beans, but if that's all you focus on, you're going to lose the product, and then there won't be any more beans to count because nobody's going to be buying the product, and that's
Is where's the value? You squeezed it all out. You made it into, well, I don't know what brands are out there like a Comcast or Verizon. It just sucks to have to deal with them. Period.
and
You know,
honestly, again, something that I wish we could do on like the union level, but an almost of a co-op platform would be amazing. If you had a creator owned and ran platform where you get above a certain number of followers or subscribers and view hours, you are now a bought in partner. You get a percent of the profits. And then everybody who has that level of engagement is also like, you have to, review X amount of reports a week or a month. So you have real people doing that stuff and real people, a decentralized management system. And then, once all the bills are paid for the platform, the money is distributed according to the value that you brought to the platform, the number of followers and views you get. You just distribute that evenly, and that would keep it from, you wouldn't have that quarterly shareholder thing to worry about, and that would keep a quality platform with the essence of like what TikTok is, where it's really creator driven without all the bullshit of what TikTok is and all these for profit platforms that eventually just cannibalize themselves because they're so focused on selling shit that they lose. There's just nothing interesting. I scroll through Instagram and I'm like, I'm so sick of seeing like dick sucking machine ads and like dumb stuff like that. It's like wait, who even uses this anymore? Because it's trash. It's all trash.
and the reels though have been tuned up to be the Instagram reels have been tuned up to like react. They're trying to get it to be like a TikTok component, right? And it's like it's something doesn't seem right, but the pattern is established. They're like trying to get a new component or feature set going. They'll tell everybody like that's the new thing. You'll get more views if you put content in this format in this way. And then once they build a sufficient audience from the content creators bringing it all in there, then they, turn it down a little bit, the distribution, and now create like, hey, do you want to pay to get seen or something, right? I think that's the game plan. It's just pay to play at some point for both content for advertisers and the content creators, trying to see if the content creators are willing to pay, and some are, right? Um, I don't know where it's going, to tell you the truth,
I
Jordan.
don't
I don't
know.
know, but I'm not uninclined to like that open source, like like a big foundation putting the capital to build this sort of a distribute. I mean, the tech exists.
Hmm.
You can do distributed computing, and it'll just maybe it's based on like how fast a computer you can get, and there's levels to that or something to be your own server for your own files, and then you control the content completely, or your list of subscribers. Like that should be like it should be able to be a box that can move with you, and then the platforms have to then compete for the artists, right? For the better value.
Absolutely.
But right now, that's not
No,
happening.
it's not. And without some big concerted effort, it's going to be a difficult thing to make happen. But I think for the subscribers too, for the people who consume the entertainment, it would be such a higher quality experience for them because now you have people who can create the content they want to create without having to worry about, you know, what algorithm is TikTok trying to push this week that, because like right now they're trying to do series, they're trying to do long form content to compete with YouTube. And oh yeah,
Really?
it's called series. They have the
What?
same. They have
What?
it's a pay to
Are you
play
serious?
thing, and yeah, and they kept
I mean,
upping.
why can't these guys stay in their lanes? Why are they so stressed about why couldn't TikTok just do the scroll stuff, YouTube do the medium content, audio only? What? They're all starting to look the same too, if you've noticed over time.
Nope, everybody just tries to. Oh, this is what's working. We got to emulate it, and that's what business does. I mean, you look at all the cars on the road look the same for a reason, and everybody's just like, this is what's selling. We got to make the same thing, and nobody competes for the new best thing. Everybody's just trying to emulate the thing that's working and try to squeeze their portion of the pie out of that. So yeah, I don't know where it's going, and it's really frustrating as a as a creator because it's always filled with so much uncertainty and so much frustration and so much feeling like you're not seen or heard, even though you're seen or heard by hundreds of thousands of people. You can't get seen or heard by the people who you're making the money for, and that just drives you up a wall. But that's not unique to this business either.
No,
So
this is the business that is has evolved in this spot where it is. And I really do appreciate you just giving us, like, the straight, your straight opinions on that. Like, I do there's a darkness to content creation. It's not all
no.
hunky dory, just make your TikTok videos, your whatever, you know, and make millions. I I I do use Mr. Beast as a good example just because he emulates some of those principles of, like, surprise and emotional content, and yet, on the other hand, he makes his 80 what did he make?
Right,
$800,000,000?
yeah. And, and again, and I don't like I see like you see the people who got big on TikTok early on, just girls doing this in front of the camera, and it's like, it's like to me, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, I feel like I am putting far more value onto the platform than a 14-year-old girl doing a shitty dance. You know what I mean? But
Don't worry about that. Don't even I mean, I wouldn't even look at
no,
that. I would
and
just
I
do
don't.
you, because that you have a unique voice, and you hit a vein that's definitely resonating with a ton of people. And I hope you can continue to do that, and I hope that anybody that listens to you that is a fan of yours goes out and buys those glasses.
Yeah, please buy the glasses, buy the merch, anything people can do to, and not just for me, any creator, and I try to say this a lot, is like
It matters.
people need to support the creators in any way you can. And I understand not everybody can do it financially. I spend most of my time sitting here trying to give voice to the people who don't have enough to get by, and I don't want their money because I'm probably doing better off than they are, and I want them to be thriving. I don't want them uh to feel obligated to give me something, but everybody who does give me something, that helps me too. Like, I'm also not rich. I'm not making $800 million a year. I'm not making $80,000 a year doing this. So like it means a lot to me. It means a lot to every creator who puts their time and effort into doing it, and it's important to remember that, to support them. And I think for the people who, because this is about people trying to get in to do this, right? This podcast, that's kind of what you.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just discussion on that. I'm definitely intrigued by and the experiences that content creators that are like you're like hitting this inflection, definitely. Especially like it's only been a year and a half, 2 years, something like
Year and a
that.
half, yeah.
I mean, it's like like you should be proud of that.
Yeah, I'm hugely proud. I'm hugely thankful about where I've gotten, and I think just because I've seen, it's really weird when you do this, and like the people you follow initially who are like these, you see them as these huge creators, right? They've got hundreds of thousands of followers and stuff. And when I was down there with 10,000 followers, and it's like I can't imagine what it would be like to have all that. And then you blow by these people, right? And it's like, wow, okay, like your perspective starts to change about it, and you start to hear about these frustrations that like other creators have and stuff like that, and frustrations that you get that communal thing. But I think a lot of people struggle with is they'll find some success, and then they'll hit a wall, and it gets really, it is addictive, and it has a huge effect on your mental state and your self-esteem that people really need to be aware of going into this. Is you're more than likely not going to be successful. And if you are successful, you're probably never going to be successful as you want to be, or as you hope to be, or as you aspire to be. And if you get to that point, that goal, that benchmark where you're like, if I could just get to 10,000, 100,000, 500,000, then I'm going to be happy. That's my goal. That's where I want to be. The next one's right there. That it's every time you hit that, and it's something that you really need to make sure going into this, that you have a plan together to keep your mental health strong. Like, you can't, because it can ruin your mental health. It can ruin your day. And then especially, people on the internet are assholes. And like,
Yeah,
I've got thick
yeah.
skin and I enjoy the assholes. They provide me with, 90% of my content, thankfully. But I'm not most people, and a lot of people, that stuff affects them. The personal attacks, or the attacks on the content, and how poor the content is. If I go back to some of my really old, because I did stuff on YouTube years ago, just review videos and things like that. If I go back And I was like, I was just a teenage kid. Like, hey, I couldn't find a review on this thing that I wanted to do or a how to. And so I'm like trying to put that out in the world because I used that stuff. I was just trying to return. Like, if I couldn't find a how to, I went through and did the how to when I figured it out on my own. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had shitty early 2000s technology and shit like that, you know?
You got some jerk came in there and dropped a nasty
Oh
comment.
yeah, all the time. Like, oh, the video's awful and this and that. It's like, go fuck yourself. But and that used to hurt. I don't care anymore. But it's one of those things that it's hard. It's really hard to kind of keep your mental health together. And then on top of it, with like TikTok or other platforms that will again ban your video or remove your video or remove comments, give you strikes, and you have no recourse for that. That probably gets me more than the individual comments. And it's something that people, I think, really just need to make sure that they go in with a solid understanding of keep your expectations reasonable so you don't get crushed, and just remember that it's the internet and none of these people's opinions matter, and it doesn't matter how many, if you're enjoying what you're doing, it doesn't matter how many followers you have. And it's always nice to have more followers and more views, but do it because you want to do it, not because you want the fame and fortune that you're probably never going to get.
I think that's really important. I think that's really important. Make sure you get clarity on that why, because it's a journey, definitely, and it comes with a ton of bumps
Mm-hmm.
here and there. And your expectations are probably wrong. Like if you've never, especially if you've never done it before, your expectations are totally way off.
Mm-hmm.
So you just gotta stick it out, get into the process, try to simplify what your production role. Don't overshoot
Mm-hmm.
production just to try to get the next thing or the next, news item, hot take or whatever. Just stick to that and you'll have a better path, I think, if you have a clear long-term strategy associated with it. Yeah, man. Jordan, thank you so much, bro. We just went through an hour and 10 minutes. I gotta go pick up my kids.
Yeah, sorry, I get carried
But
away.
I wanna do this again, and I think, I'd like maybe I gotta put you in touch with Farzad at one point, this crazy Tesla guy. But you might clash, you guys are from different political bents, but on the other hand, it might be good for you guys to connect. But thank you so much for giving me some insights on this show, and yeah, let's do this again. Just keep
Absolutely.
just keep keep going. Don't stop, Jordan. Your video's fucking hilarious, and I like the science ones too, like, a lot, so
I appreciate that. And yeah, that was part of it too. I get burnt out on the same content, and so like I have to mix some different stuff in there. So I like the science stuff. I like the Sunday
some of these
Fundays.
things, man, you did, it was like it reminded me of, like, watching Messi. You make it look so effortless, and it's just this beautiful move. You must have been super opinionated your whole life.
Very much so. Yep, very much so. And this is the most constructive outlet I've found. So it's
Do you have any siblings, like brothers or sisters?
no, I mean I got a half sister, but way older. Never grew up with her.
Okay.
Barely. I mean, I know her, but not.
So just your buddies arguing with
Just always been real opinionated, and so yeah, finally, this has given me the constructive outlet, to do it in a somewhat healthy way that resonates with people, and I feel like I'm actually making making some difference with my opinions and whatnot. So
I think you definitely are. I think you definitely are. It's not by accident that you get, the type of, engagement that you're doing. There's definitely hit a vein, so just keep at it and you know, don't let you know what? Let's take some shit off mic. Let's you and I talk
all
later.
right, sounds great.
Everybody, thank you for watching. I hope this gives you some insights, but please go to Jordan's channel, Off Jawagon, you have this underscore,
Yeah,
J-A
OFF underscore JAWAGGON. So
yeah, obviously links are in the thing. Bye, everybody.
thanks for having me on.
Visit throughthenoise.us for more episodes and subscribe to our newsletter. This show is produced by Through the Noise Consulting, uniting external communications and internal IT functions to ensure data and privacy are protected while creating innovative communications platforms. Want to start your own podcast? We can help. Visit getthroughthenoise.com to learn more.